Hey guys, welcome to Mythborn 3, or Mythborn Live, episode 3, I should say. And this one is about percolation of planets. Hey, I know I've been gone a long time, and I have had some stuff I'm trying to deal with, trying to move the house. And as you know, anytime you're trying to move, everything goes nuts. I had to shave. that took an inordinate amount of time. But I am back. I'm very, really excited. So look forward to today's episode where we talk about, I said earlier, percolation of planets. That's not what I meant. What I meant was get ready for my theory of water appearing on planetary bodies through a percolation effect. So stand by. Mythborn Live's coming your way. Thanks. Hey folks, well, welcome to Mythborn Live 24/7 365. We're on episode 3. And it's going to be this time about my percolation theory on planetary water, bodies of water, and ocean formation. Okay, so this is how the theory goes. First of all, the idea that comets hit the Earth over millions of years and created water, I'm not disputing that is one vector by which water could be formed. In fact, I'm sure that there are a number of different complementary methods in which water came to the Earth. However, I found something very interesting in thinking a little bit about something I heard on a space shuttle mission. I had heard in a space shuttle mission that astronauts saw tiny dust particles that were essentially space dust, right? Silicates and pieces of, asteroid dust and things that would eventually become asteroids. These things clung to each other because of electrostatic force. So essentially what they're saying is, hey, they have a certain electrical charge imparted upon them, and they would cling because particles of opposite charges would basically clump together. And this clumping would eventually lead to larger and larger clumps, which essentially would transition from needing to have a electrostatic connection to a gravitational connection. That intrigued me a little bit. It basically took how tiny particles that don't have any real ability to have gravity, how they come together to form planets. So that was one step in my theory. The second part was, there's a hole dug in Russia. I'm going to put information on it. I think it's called the Kola Super Borehole. It's the deepest hole we've made. And what astounded scientists was a couple of things. One, as they went down deeper and deeper, they expected the temperature to go up. We know that as you go lower in the Earth, temperature goes up. And it did. But it went up much faster and much higher than what they thought. The second thing that was very interesting is this Kola Super Borehole was deep, and as I said, the temperature was going higher and higher, but it was going up much faster than they thought. The second thing they thought was, there's these areas of transition in the Earth. They go like, say, basalt to granite, or different kinds of rock levels and densities. But what they found was there was a ton more water at a depth much deeper than could seep from the surface of the Earth. The temperature was too high, but there was water encased from pressure. And they found a lot of it. And when I say a lot, I mean, the geologists were astounded by the amount of water that permeated this layer. It didn't go from a smooth transition of dry basaltic rock to dry, granite. It had water infused throughout this area. The third thing that was interesting, and sometimes this is how my brain works, but I just remember facts from many different places. Then at some point, enough facts come in that something clicks. This third fact, but the point is, they found a giant underwater ocean, 400 kilometers large. It may contain as much water as one of our ocean, as our oceans on the surface, maybe more. Think about that. Subterranean water that might exceed the level of water that's on the surface of our planet. Okay, so what does this mean? So remember I told you earlier about this idea that these microscopic particles are clumping because of electrostatic force, and then eventually they get together enough that gravity takes over, and as gravity takes over, they get bigger and bigger clumping, and you get more and more growth of this thing until eventually it gets more and more larger. Well, the most abundant thing in the universe is hydrogen. Of the top 5 elements, hydrogen and oxygen are in the, that area. They're very abundant. My theory is that as these clumps come together, the hydrogen and oxygen within these clumps begins to also collect. So does ice, tiny particulates of ice. There's a ton of ice in the system, right? And so ice forms, tiny crystals, all the time. Part of this compaction of material involves water ice, involves a ton of this stuff. So imagine a very dirty snowball forming because of first electrostatic cling, and then because of gravity. So this dirty, almost brown, but pockmarked with a ton of ice snowball starts to build. Eventually, it gets big enough that it starts to compact into a sphere under its own gravity. And when it does that, what we find is that the interior of that body starts to heat up because of pressure. Now, as the interior of the body heats up because of pressure, that heat starts to first liquefy anything on the inside, right? So any ice is going to turn to water. Eventually, that inside of the body, because the body gets so big, it heats up to almost the temperature of the sun. I mean, that's our interior of our Earth is about as hot as the what we measure in some parts of the sun. So that interior area of heat starts driving the water now as a gas up through these layers of Earth. And as it drives it up, what does it do? It cools as it goes. It cools as it goes. It starts to basically condense, right, as it moves up the subsurface. And as it does that, my percolation theory is this. Essentially, it percolates to the surface as water. Maybe on some other planets, it percolates up as, liquid nitrogen based on the temperature, or liquid helium, or whatever, right? But the point is, whatever the starting position and the major parts of the constituents of what that internal structure is, and whatever the size the planet gets and its distance from the sun, which determines how much heat actually falls on the surface of the planet, you'll see these outgassing at the surface that either condenses and then rains, maybe the source of our biblical legends or our Hindu legends, or all our legends on flood myth of millions of years of rain condensing out from these gases coming from the inside of the planet. And in some cases, the surface temperature of the planet is correct and the liquid stays, it's water. Others that can't exist at that temperature turn into gas and either stay in the atmosphere or they get dissipated out of the atmosphere. Others that can't condense or don't turn to gas or can't remain as gas, they solidify back again on the surface as, solid matter. But ultimately, this percolation theory says that every planet should have some amount of water percolating up from the interior because of the interior's heat, pushing those elements out as gases, which then, as they percolate through the surface, cool and condense and become water at the very top. This percolation theory says, hey, here's where all of our water comes from on Earth. And sure, comets might have added to it. A great snowball Earth might have added to it. Glaciers. I mean, huge iceberg-sized comets, impacts. I think there are a number of things, but percolation itself ought to be responsible for the largest percentage of the water that we get on the planet. So that was the theory. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Mythborn 3. We will have more coming, and talk to you guys soon. Enjoy Mythborn. Hey folks, thanks for joining us for the show. I really enjoy doing these, and I appreciate you, my fans, making it possible. Please like, subscribe, share, and let me know what you want to hear next. Thank you so much. It's your support that makes all this possible. Take care.